Hi, I'm Jill Fetcher.
And I'm Maggie Humphrey.
And you're listening to The Agency Scoop,
where we're talking about business from an agency point of view.
And our point of view, with some laughs along the way.
Don't forget to subscribe and tune in every month for the latest scoop.
Welcome to this month's episode of The Agency Scoop. I'm Jill Fetcher.
And I'm Maggie Humphrey.
And what's new with you, Maggie? What's going on right now?
Well, I actually just got back from vacation. I took a cruise in the Caribbean, and it was fantastic. I went with some friends, and there was a lot of sunshine, and it was just really nice to relax and come back to Rochester, and it's raining and gray and brown. So I really enjoyed the sunshine. Actually, while we were on the cruise, our husbands, so I went with some friends and my husband, and us girls were sitting out on the deck one morning just hanging out, and out comes our three husbands, one after the other, in matching outfits.
On purpose?
On purpose.
Like they were pranking you?
Yes, they were pranking us. So we had absolutely no idea that this was happening. And so I'm sitting in the pool with my drink, and my jaw hits the floor. I was just like, what is happening?
What were the outfits?
So this is the best part, is they are bright teal, and now they have a button-up shirt and then matching swim trunks. So this is a swim outfit, they wore it all day. And they're bright teal with pineapples and cats with sunglasses on.
Oh my
It was just the most random outfit I've ever seen. So I think that's what made it so funny. And they're just walking around the deck like they own the place. They had so much fun. Everyone was pointing and laughing and questioning and wondering, and they just soaked it all up. It was hilarious.
Well, I've heard a wise man once say that the more complicated the pattern, the more valuable the shirt is.
That's true.
From Dan Flashes.
True.
So in my world, I felt like all of a sudden, after a couple of years of having no kids' activities at the schools, they are back in full force. We had chorus concerts, we had dance things, we had kids' parties in their classrooms. So I know that I joke all the time about living in my van because I'm constantly carpooling and driving from one place to another. There was something every day, most days, had multiple things with everything, back on the schedule. The new normal.
Super mom Jill, just doing God's work.
Oh, I try my best. So, Maggie, what's happening in the news?
Yeah, so I was kind of MIA for the first week of the year because I was on a cruise and there's no Wi-Fi or anything. But as soon as I got back, I feel like everybody is talking about Chat GPT right now by OpenAI. So I wanted to just talk about that a little bit. I did some research into it. Essentially, if you don't know, it's an artificial chatbot released by OpenAI just this past November. So I guess what's unique about it is it really can chat with people as if it were a real human. At least that's what everybody's saying. So it can carry on conversations, explain things. It actually can remember and recall details, and actually even apologizes.
It's time for an apology.
So why could this potentially change business forever? Because that's what they're all saying. It's revolutionary. The first thing I went to was customer service. And in the past, I worked in-house, and I also am a retailer myself. I love shopping. And there's always those chat boxes that come up on websites and how can I help you? How can I assist you? I guess the difference with this is it now is able to carry on a conversation rather than you answer a couple questions. If it still can't help you, it redirects you to a real person. This kind of takes that out. So that could be a huge change. It could potentially replace customer service jobs, which could be good and bad. I also saw that for virtual assistants, it could potentially replace Alexa and Siri, again, having that ability to carry on real conversation. Also revolutionary for language translation, be more real-time translation. And then, of course, a benefit in the education sphere and content creation. Some of the misuses that I saw come up, which was kind of funny, was a lot of students are using these to help write essays and college papers, which actually is kind of smart.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's a misuse.
Yeah.
It depends on who you ask.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Depends. I mean, this is coming out pretty well, the things that you put into Chat GPT. So.
Yeah. And also I saw that people have been using it to help them reply to dating messages and text messages. They'll go to it for relationship advice and stuff.
I can't imagine.
Which I thought was really funny. I feel like we've all in our past have come across the scenario where it's like, what do I say back to this person? Like you're texting your friends, like help me come up with a reply. When now you can just go to Chat GPT.
Wrong.
So I thought that was really funny. But at the end of the day, it still needs humans to make it work. So I actually did try this myself. I wanted to see what this was all about. So I asked Chat GPT, do you think golden retrievers are the best dogs? Because personally, we all know I do. And they actually had a pretty decent response to this. So it replied, it is subjective to say whether golden retrievers are the best dogs, as different breeds of dogs excel in different areas and have different characteristics that make them well suited for different people and lifestyles. However, golden retrievers are definitely a popular and well-loved breed due to their friendly, outgoing, loving personalities, as well as their adaptability and trainability. They are known for being great with children and families and make a great companion for those who enjoy outdoor activities and have an active lifestyle. They are also known to be loyal and protective of their family, which can make them a great choice for people looking for a dog that will keep them safe. Overall, golden retrievers are a great breed and can make a wonderful pet for the right family. Not bad. I think like proper English-wise, it could use some work. But again, it's replying as if it's a real person, like you're having a conversation, and I could definitely see that. But I mean, you could get some really interesting facts and information from here. So I can see why a lot of people would be using it for a resource. So I guess we'll see.
This has really come a long way in such a short amount of time to be able to spit this out in very well written.
Yeah, it was fast too. It was really fast.
So, and I've seen a lot of TikToks about, you know, the ones that are telling people how to create more content, like the Beachbody coaches and things like that. And I saw a woman using it saying, put in here, the prompt is fitness tips and give me 25 fitness tips. And then Chat GPT gave all of these different tips. And then she showed how to import them using a spreadsheet into Canva to create all of these different Instagram images. And she's like, just proof it. And there you go. You got content for the month. And I was like, wow, that is a really good use. As long as you're really keeping track of it and really looking at everything with a critical eye and making sure it doesn't say something bizarre or something.
I had a client this week tell me that they used Chat GPT to help them write a blog post. And they said it was like, it was like only like 50% really there, but they said it was like a really good starting point and gave them a lot of good ideas. So it's definitely a resourceful tool. So, all right, Jill. So should we take a look behind the curtain?
Yeah, let's talk about what's going on at the agency. So a few things this month since the last episode. So one of the things that we get asked a lot when we're pitching new business is, especially from people that have lower budgets, typically, if their budget is limited, they'll say, well, if you can get results, we could pay you based on performance. And this comes up all the time. Throughout my career, it's come up a lot of different times. And typically, though, the people that ask you for that don't have something in mind. Like they'll say, just pitch us something, tell us what that bonus structure could be. And a lot of times they also either don't have a specific goal in mind or they don't have a way to track it. So, for example, in the past, when I worked for a more traditional agency, not digitally focused, it was people would want us to do a TV commercial at a discount and then pay for performance, but there wasn't really a great way of tracking it. Right. Shy of using like promo codes and things like that, but it was tough to put a number to something or to put a bonus number to something. So we recently had a client just in the past couple of weeks, and we're still sorting out the details with them. But we had a client come to us with that, but they have very specific revenue goals. And so we put together a bonus structure that would, if we hit their goal, we would get X amount. And then if we hit their goal plus 1%, we would get X amount for that 1%, and so on with different tiers. And I think it was a really good way to put it together. And it was exciting because that's just driving people, right? Like we're a performance-based marketing agency, so we're always talking about performance, but it's a great way to really, put your money where your mouth is, to say, okay, well, you're paying our retainer, but also when we hit these numbers for you, we'll get more. And that's a great motivator for our people. It's a great motivator for the client. And it was very well received, but we're just working out some of the details and that kind of thing. So I would say definitely if you have an agency or if you're working with an agency to try that, but make sure you have those specific goals and that it's very trackable so that there's no question whatsoever whether you hit the goal or not. So I think that's a win. One of the losses, that we're experiencing right now, and it's kind of a bittersweet thing. When employees leave, it's always sad and we never like to see people leave here, but we have an employee that is awesome. She's worked in our creative team for the last almost 5 years, and she really wants to pursue a different path and really learn more about videography. And she's done a lot of that here, but wants to be more, full-time videographer focused. And so as we were talking to her about her personal growth goals, and we realized it didn't necessarily align with the goals for that department, we had a really open and honest conversation about it. And she is still here. She's still working for us. But over the next few months, she's going to be, networking and trying to find her next position. And we're helping support her in that. And I feel really good about that just because so many people don't feel comfortable having that type of arrangement. But we want people to do their best. And it's better than, just finding a new job secretively and then quitting one day. So yeah.
That's why it's so important to have those conversations up front. Like, even if that wasn't the avenue she was necessarily thinking about, but just making sure you're having those quarterly check-ins or monthly check-ins, whatever they may be, to know where your employees are at. And there's no sense in burning bridges either. She's so talented. She's done amazing work, so we're really excited for her.
Yeah. And one other thing on the hiring front, something that we tested this winter break, you hear me talk about our internship program a lot. I'm really excited about our interns because we often turn them into full-time employees if it's a good fit on both sides, and it's a great way to grow our team and our staff. And we have 2 amazing interns this winter break. Typically we have interns in the fall, spring, or summer. But because of schedules aligning, we were able to bring them on just on their winter break between college for 6 weeks. And what we did was we dedicated one to PPC and one to SEO and kind of maximized their training in that way so that they weren't following a more generalized track. And so far it's been really good. I think that they're doing well and they're extending their internships into the spring. So that is exciting, and I think it worked out pretty well for us. So for our main topic today, something that I've been hearing a lot about on social media, in regular media, everywhere, is this trend of quiet quitting. What have you heard about quiet quitting, Maggie?
My definition, quote unquote, what quiet quitting is, I would say, is like someone who does the bare minimum. Like, they kind of just check the boxes, they do what they're told, and they don't go above and beyond. Like, they're not really concerned about growing. They're concerned about getting a paycheck, right? They're not going the extra mile. They're never going to stay late to get something done. But I also have heard some different approaches to that. But that's where my mind goes to when I hear quiet quitting.
Yeah, I think of it as mostly pertaining to, I think mostly people talk about it in more of these corporate office type jobs. A lot of them are work from home now, or, mostly remote, working for big companies that people are quiet quitting, like the people who say they just wiggle their mouse every now and then to look like they're online, but they're really just like at home watching Netflix or something. Like that's the persona that comes to my mind.
Yeah. It's definitely been a trending topic since the pandemic, but I did some research and just a few stats for you. So according to a Gallup survey in 2022, it suggested that at least half of the U.S. workforce consists of quiet quitters, which I was like, wow, that's a lot.
Well, if at least 50% of the workforce is classified as quiet quitters, if that's accurate, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, that'd be more than 80 million people. Like, that is a lot of people insane. Quiet quitting their job. I will say, though, on that data, if there's 160 million people in the workforce, they're probably not all fitting that persona of that, like, corporate, work remote, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it depends on your definition. It's a little subjective.
Still a lot of people, and it's a pretty big trend. It's kind of trendy new name just for worker dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that's brand new just because of the pandemic. It's something that's probably been around a long time of
For
people
sure.
just doing the bare minimum.
So what is quiet quitting exactly? I was able to find 2 different definitions of quiet quitters. So there's one, those who do the bare minimum to collect a paycheck long term, which was kind of like my version of what I thought quiet quitting was.
So they'll stay in the same job for 10 years,
Yeah.
but like never care
Yeah,
about
exactly.
it and just do the bare minimum.
Or 2, those who know that they are not satisfied with their job and actively are seeking an opportunity elsewhere. People using their current job as a placeholder until they find another more fulfilling position. I kind of feel like those 2 are very similar though, and I also think that that's not always true, especially if you're entry level. Like you could be in a job and be like, you know what, this isn't the job I'm going to do forever, but it's getting my foot at the door, it's building my resume, and you could still work really hard at it, right? It doesn't mean you're quiet quitting. It's just, you know, you're building your resume. So I think that's a little subjective as well. But overall, it sounds like it's really the people that do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
There's no overachieving here.
Yeah. This one TikTok that you shared with me from Zaid Khan said, you're not outright quitting your job, but you're quitting the idea of going above and beyond. You're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribed to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your life.
But I think that like a lot of that came out of the pandemic. Like so many people started thinking about like work-life balance and, you know, my job isn't my life. So like I think that there's some pros coming out of that. Like I don't think your job should be your life. But again, when you're working, like work hard, have some integrity, I guess, right? But, you know, there's a lot of problems that come with a quiet quitter on the team, especially like an agency perspective. Like it's going to impact collaboration, right? If you have somebody in your group that's really just there, they're just kind of like a body, and everybody else might be working hard and collaborating, but they're really just taking the back seat. And that can set off a chain of reaction with other team members, right?
When you see someone that has the same title as you, probably making around the same money as you, but they're not pulling their weight and you feel like you're going above and beyond, it's really hard on people sometimes not to see that and go, oh, I don't have to go so hard. Or, oh, that looks really good. They're just kind of coasting, and maybe I could do that.
I kind of feel like the quiet quitters of the corporate world are those students in college that were in the group projects that let somebody else do all the work and just take credit.
They were never the lead of the group project. Yep. And then people who like to work for agencies are typically the one that was the lead of the group project. Exactly. So I've heard a lot of examples of people having multiple jobs that they're doing the bare minimum at, but they're just logged into 2 different computers and doing that. And that's
so crazy.
Like I would not be able to morally do that. I would just feel icky every day that I was like lying to
the amount of anxiety
so many people.
Like that blows my mind.
And part of the reason that this is such a thing happening, a lot of HR people are talking about it, a lot of corporations are talking about it, like, what do we do about this? You know, how do we stop this? I mean, one of the things that like lets this go on is that in big corporations, there's so much red tape around documenting people's performance, around firing someone that is not performing, that a lot of times managers, like we see this sometimes in clients' companies, that if someone isn't performing on your team, a lot of times a manager will be like, oh, why don't you try for this other job in this other department, and kind of push the problem around, because it's really too hard to get rid of those people that are checking the boxes but aren't necessarily contributing in a valuable way or moving the needle in any sort of way, that they're not a great employee, but you can't always do something about it. It makes it worse when it's hard to when they realize there's no consequences.
Right. So I think like an argument against that is sometimes people lump in someone who's willing to set boundaries to quiet quitting, which I feel like boundaries are good. Like it's good to set boundaries for yourself, especially when it comes to working a job in corporate. We all know how mentally taxing that can be. We've both been there. But also when you're able to do your job remote, it's really hard to turn it off. So looking at two different scenarios, the first one being someone who simply just is able to shut work off. Like 5 o'clock hits, they shut their laptop, they're not checking their email, they're not thinking about it, which good for them. That's easier said than done. They're on vacation, they're not thinking about work, they're not staying late, they've done what they can do during the day, they've worked hard, but it can wait till tomorrow. Versus the opposite, someone who might be withdrawing. So I feel like that's going to be your difference right there. Someone putting boundaries up, I can respect that. Like, hey, I'm off the clock. I'm not looking at my email. I'm not going to think about work. It can wait till tomorrow. Versus the person who's like limited to communicating with the team. They're really not going to go above and beyond to get something done. They're really not concerned. There's no fire under them during the workday.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think when people have boundaries, that's great. And they can learn how to communicate them well in getting the job, in being a part of that job so that their coworkers know. And who's producing during the workday, You wouldn't judge that person that they didn't answer an email at 9 o'clock at night because that they're kicking butt during the day.
Sure.
So, but I think you're right that is a way that the whole boundaries versus quiet quitting, the term quiet quitting is getting overused by companies
100%.
and that kind of thing when there might be managers that feel like I should be able to reach you at all times. And that's not really fair.
Right. And just because you don't have any boundaries doesn't mean your employee shouldn't either.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's on you. If you want to work at 9 o'clock at night, okay, no one's stopping you, but that doesn't mean that your employee has to either.
Expectations on the company side and on the manager side is so important when it comes to those types of things. So knowing, hey, we're the kind of business that at 5 o'clock you can shut off your computer and go home. Don't think about us till the morning. But there might be a couple times a year when we're going towards a deadline or an emergency happens or something like that. Or knowing going into a job, like this is the kind of job where I need you on all the time.
Yep.
And that's what the expectations are. So it's, there shouldn't be a need for boundaries like that to be set if you have a healthy work environment where you are setting those expectations and also, bringing the right people to the team that have the same expectations and boundaries.
Something that kind of leads into what's the best way to address this or prevent it from even happening. So I think, of course, setting the expectations out of the gate. But really, according to Harvard Business Review, they recently released an article basically saying it's less about the employees and more about the bosses, which I 100% agree with and also aligns with what you were just saying as well. So as a manager or an employer, you should know your employees. You should know if they're happy. You should know if they're unhappy. You need to have some type of open line of communication with them.
100%. And I think it comes to knowing early and discussing these things when you notice that someone seems dissatisfied, not acting like themselves, being like, hey, the past week or two, you seem to be not as engaged as you used to be, or even the past month. But if you come to someone and say, you know what, all of last year, you really phoned it in. They're going to be like, well, thanks for noticing, bud.
Right.
But it's, but I think it's something that you have to have that open line of communication regularly, often, early, to understand those things.
Kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier with one of our employees here that is leaving us. We wouldn't know that if we didn't check in with that person. We wouldn't know that they had this path that they were interested in exploring, which is okay. But we now know where that person stands, and that's so important. It's why you should have quarterly meetings with your team to know, where they're at. You should have them set goals for themselves and see where they are in achieving those goals. That's setting them up for success.
I know we talk about it a lot too with growth and talking to your employees about their goals, but if your employee doesn't have growth goals, if they're like, I just want to do my job and go home, or, I don't want to be a manager, I don't want to get to the next level, I don't care about a promotion, I could do this same job for the rest of my life, making widgets, whatever, whatever that job is. But if they don't have those goals, it's up to you to know, does it matter? Are they still happy not growing in their position? is it a value of your company or of your department of a company? So one of our pillar values in our marketing team here is to embrace growth. I almost said accept growth. It's not accepted not to accept growth, but you need to embrace growth. And we talk about growth all the time. We have so many training and educational opportunities. We talk to all of our people about what their goals are and how they want to grow towards them and what they need to do to get there and how we can support them in that. But it's such a cornerstone of what we believe that if someone came in here and said, I just want to do this one thing and that's it, like I don't want to get better at it, I don't want to get to the next level, I don't want to manage clients, I don't want to do whatever that is, they wouldn't necessarily fit in,
right.
And fit in the grand scheme of things, because what do you do with that person that just wants to take direction and do that forever if that's one of your values?
Right. And I feel like in some of those big corporate structures, people like that can get away with it a little bit easier, but a place like our type of agency, in order for us to succeed, we need our employees to care and have integrity and go above and beyond, right? And that's how everyone is here, and that's just part of our culture.
I also think that one of the ways to spot quiet quitters or even just people with like bad attitudes, I think the phrase "that's not my job" comes up a lot.
Red flag.
Or you have people who are like just constantly pushing the due date or pushing the work to other people.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, we had this meeting about this. I'll just schedule another meeting in 3 weeks to talk about it, and nothing gets done in between. But they feel like, oh, well, that's fine. No one's going to ask me until that meeting's scheduled. You know, behaviors like that in the corporate world, I feel like are prime examples of how you know someone is checked out and just kind of doing it.
Yeah. Look for those red flags. You know, a few things to keep in mind, that there's a difference between someone who has boundaries and someone who's a quiet quitter, and also just making sure you have an open line of communication with your team.
Yeah. And look at yourself. I mean, the employer or the manager, a lot of times, like we said, they're the ones causing it or allowing it to happen or making it progress. Yeah. It's not necessarily always the employee's work ethic. It's the culture, it's the environment, it's the structure.
Exactly.
So look at yourself first.
Cool. Good job. All right, Jill, should we move on to everyone's favorite segment?
Sure.
Don't be that girl.
Don't be that girl. So this is where we talk about clients and their behavior that we say, don't be that kind of client. All right. So this month we want to talk about what I would say, don't be a half-ass client. Be a full-ass client, right? So there are clients out there, they want you to drop everything on a dime to take care of them in an emergency, but then they don't listen to anything you say. So you have the same conversation 50 times in a row. They don't read your emails and they don't do what they say they're going to do. But then they'll call your cell phone at 8 p.m. and try to talk to you about something that's not urgent at all. So that's what I would call being a half-ass client, where you only care about yourself and not the other half of this partnership. And so we had something like that recently happen. I'm just had it up to here with it. So
yeah,
without naming names, that's all I got to say.
Not naming names, but Jill and I had to get on a call together actually with a client. And it was an hour-long conversation, and we've already had this conversation with this person numerous times. And they were looking for us to put together a specific document outlining certain details. And I had already put this document together back in September and sent it to them, but this person never looks at their email. And again, it wasn't urgent in that very moment. So this person decided to plop an appointment and meeting on our calendars without asking us, just at a random time, hoping that it would work. We got on the call and again had to repeat ourselves and resend the document that we had already sent months prior.
I think that kind of behavior too, where they just put a meeting on your calendar 2 hours from the current time, is rude, and you wouldn't treat somebody else that way. And so it's really interesting to see someone that views us as more of a vendor as opposed to a partner, because I think most of our clients really see us as an extension of their team and as a partner to them. And so just kind of disrespectfully not doing the things they said they were going to do, not reading their emails, not answering our questions, not getting the things we need, but then expecting us to just jump
Yeah.
with a moment's notice over something that's not urgent is just
It's also frustrating too.
disrespectful.
Like, I took a lot of time putting that document together months ago, and the fact that this person didn't obviously realize it existed, they never looked at it.
Well, and we presented it like 4
Yeah,
times, so
yeah.
there was that too.
It's just like, come on.
Well, that's all we have for this month's episode of the Agency Scoop. Thanks for tuning in.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Agency Scoop.
The Agency Scoop is produced by Cypress North, a digital agency in Buffalo, New York. Our producer is Greg Finn. Our editor is Eric Barnes. Our graphics are by Sammy Hansen.
Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts.
You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn to share your thoughts about the episode and give us ideas for future topics.
We'll see you next time.